The 2022 Asian Games that was scheduled to be held in Hangzhou from September 10 to 25 has now been indefinitely postponed. The main reason behind this is the surging coronavirus wave that is currently in China. Shanghai, Hangzhou and all the other provinces are witnessing record numbers. So the Olympic Committee of Asia took the decision to indefinitely postpone the 2022 Hangzhou Asiad. This is a very strange decision considering that a couple of months ago, Beijing had hosted the Winter Olympics quite successfully, although in a strict biobubble protocol. So for the first time in the history of the Asian Games, an edition has been postponed indefinitely. We do not know what are the dates for the edition, but it will be somewhere around 2023, but it will be a very cramped calendar already. However, if I have to look at instances apart from Hangzhou 2022, which have been marred by controversies and suspensions, the mind diverts back to 1962 when the Asiad was held in Jakarta. In that edition, there was no invitation given to Taiwan and Israel because Indonesia did not recognize both of them as countries and they also did not have diplomatic relations with them. That action by Indonesia proved to be very controversial and even the IOC took cognizance of that. Because of this, the International Olympic Committee suspended Indonesia after the end of the 1962 Asiad. However, if I have to look at even further instances, there was also a case in 1978. Of course, the venue was Bangkok. But did you know that prior to that, where was the Asian Games going to be held? It was going to be held in Pakistan for the first time in 1978. However, that tournament had to be moved out because Pakistan cited for official reasons that there were some political tensions in the country. Unofficially, there were financial pressures and that is why the country was in a financial strife. They could not afford to host the Asian Games. So, 1978 instead of Pakistan, it went to Bangkok. But the most controversial incident happened in 1974 in Tehran. Prior to the 1974 Asiad, the year 1973 saw Israel engage in a bitter war with the Arab nations over the Yom Kippur situation. Remarkably, 1 year after that, Iran, the host country, invited Israel for the Asian Games. There was vehement opposition from all the Arab states that how could Iran invite Israel, which was a foe. But Israel was invited and after that, the rest is history. But it was a very, very controversial moment. 16 years later, there was one more controversy when it came to the Asian Games hosting. In 1990, Beijing played host to the Asian Games for the first time ever. However, the choice of venue seemed to be rather odd, considering in 1989, there were pro-democracy opposition and there was pro-democracy protests in Tiananmen Square, which was brutally crushed by the Chinese regime. So, after 1989 to host the Asian Games in 1990 was a sign that perhaps politics did not matter. So, amidst all the controversy over Tiananmen, which was raging in 1989, China played host to the Asian Games for the first time in 1990. The situation was also marked by Iraq's suspension from the Asian Games. Because in 1990, the first Gulf War took place, Operation Desert Storm in 1990, between US and their allies against Iraq. So Iraq was also suspended from the Asian Games because of that. If I have to look at 1994 in Hiroshima, there was one more controversy and a tragedy that happened. North Korea did not send its delegation to Hiroshima because of tensions between Japan and North Korea. But at the same time, Nepal, which had only missed 2 editions prior to that, had tragedy. The head of the Games delegation, Naresh Kumar Adhikari, was found dead just before the start of the Asian Games. He was rushed to the hospital from the village. There were no details available, but he was pronounced dead. So Nepal faced tragedy and there was political tension between North Korea and Japan heading into Hiroshima. Apart from this, there have been very few controversies in the Asian Games because the Asiad has not seen that much of controversy compared to the Olympics, where every edition, at least prior to 2016, faced a lot of opposition. Thank you so much for watching this special explainer and special live on the Asian Games. I'll be back with more such analysis and news in the coming days. Please press the subscribe, share and like button for Sports Today.